and welcome to another episode of In the Know, Slate's election talk show. I'm Julia Craven, your host this week, and today I am thrilled to be talking with Phillip Agnew, an artist and organizer with Black Men Build. Welcome, Phil, and welcome to our viewers. And as always, if y'all have any questions, please drop them in the comment section and we will try to get to them. So, how are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm great. And if my Monday is good, the rest of the week is good. So I work really, really hard for my Monday to be good. I have not watched Lovecraft yet. So there's still some work to be done, but I'm good. I'm feeling really good. How are you?
That's good. I like that. I like that if your Monday is good, the rest of your week is good. That's good. I'm gonna use that. And I can't complain, or at least I won't.
Okay. All right.
All right. So let's get started. So tell us about your organization, Black Men Build.
So we launched Black Men Build earlier this year. This has been the product of about a year of work. We didn't know that 2020 was going to amount to what it's amounted to. We knew it was an election year, but we didn't know the pandemic was going to hit as hard as it did, or that the government would act like it didn't exist, or that Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and the litany of names that we now know would be right in front of us on our doorstep again. But we built it with the understanding that Black men have been hurting, right? And that we're hurting the ones close to us, we're hurting ourselves, and there needs to be a place for Black men to come together and engage in a political way. And we believe that the personal is political, and really all things are political. So Black Men Build is a place for Black men to come and engage the country in an organized way. But also our kind of internal motto is come as you are and grow as you go. We want to be a place where the movement is accessible to Black men, for them to come, for them to learn, for them to unfurl, for them to heal, and for them to really get trained up for what we consider a wartime, right? That we are actually in a wartime, and that we've got to not be on the sidelines, but participating in the political decisions that affect our lives, our families, our communities.
Wow, that's a beautiful mission statement that you've laid out for us. It's very important for Black people, particularly Black men, to have places to heal because men just aren't told that they can do that.
No?
So does, how does that connect with this political moment that we're in right now?
Well, as I said, everything is political. And what I consider this moment to be is an electoral moment, right? Where we're looking at who is going to lead this country for the next 4 years, maybe 8 years, and really who is going to lead on the world stage. And Black men have to participate in that conversation at par, right? With our sisters, with the other people of all other identities, because this decision is going to dictate what the next 10 and 20 years are going to look like. And healing connects to that because Black men, just like all men in this country, and really all people in this country, have grown up programmed to believe in exploitation and domination, right, as the way to rule and the way to govern. And Black men have become increasingly attracted to right wing rhetoric, right? That we need a strong man in office, that we don't need people from other ethnicities coming into this country taking jobs, that we don't need women and other people of other identities, sexual representations to have any say in what our lives and our families look like. And so we were built under the realization that Black men have to come into a transformation in this moment. We have to broaden our perspective, right, of what is just and what is right. And that will beckon a new political movement. And also, we can't be on the sidelines during this year. This election is going to decide what the next generation looks like. And we can't have Black men on the sidelines. That's really the core idea that I want people to understand. I want my brothers, I want anybody to understand. No matter what your thoughts are about voting, about the two candidates, I actually have a fair hate and disdain for both parties. I believe they are both the crisis, not the answer to the crisis. And to sit and just wait and watch to see what happens is going to result in devastating consequences for our people. And we can't afford to do that. It's not a strategic move, and it's not one that our children, our grandchildren will be proud of.
Right. And so let's talk about the election protection leg of your organization, because right now you're looking for 1,500, if I'm not
Yes,
mistaken, Black men
yes.
to join in this part of what you're doing. So tell us about that. What sparked your desire to get involved with election protection?
Well, frankly, when we look at the voting numbers, we know it is our grandparents, it is our parents, it is predominantly Black women who are going out to the polls. And that has been the history of this country. And we understand that Black men, for a variety of different reasons, have been barred from the polls, have had the franchise taken away from them because of felony convictions, right? And have not been able to have access to the ballot box at the level. And that's a systemic thing. But we know that on the other side that our sisters are going to vote. And then we see, conversely, a leader of a party, I'm not going to even say their name, who is calling out the worst elements of our society, the most hateful, racist, vitriolic, violent aspects of our society to go to the polling places. And so as Black men, we cannot once again stand aside and know that our people, maybe we, hopefully we are, but that our uncles, that our aunts, that our grandparents, that our mothers, that our fathers are going to go to the polls and maybe engage with some of those hateful elements that have been ginned up with this rhetoric from the right, and we not be there to protect them. And so what we always say is it's not protecting the polls, it is protecting our people at the polls. It is saying that no matter what your personal views are about voting, whether you think it's impactful, important, or you're buying into a failed system, that our people do believe in voting, and we have a responsibility to make sure that they can engage in this democracy in safety, right, and without worry. It's not just about that, Julia. There are some neighborhoods, right? If you're in Chicago, you're in Detroit, you're in Miami, where white supremacists not coming to the block. We know they're not coming over there, right? They talk all that stuff, but they're not coming over to this side. But there are also people who go and sit in the line, right? They send people to be in the line and say, if you have a felony conviction, you can't vote. Lying to people. We know that there's been a history of them also sending police officers to go and park their cars in front of voting places and shine the lights to deter people from going out to vote or coming to the polls. And so we want to be a Black face in the place to say, look, we want to make sure you have everything you need to be able to go and do what you need to do at the ballot box without danger to your body, and also to ensure that you have the information that doesn't make you get out of line and go home or go to another polling place without doing what you came there to do.
So what does that intervention look like? What does diffusing those situations look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we had a training yesterday, our first training, and we're also a part of a national effort with the NAACP, with the Working Families Party. There's a number of organizations working on this. And so what we do is we provide training not only on where to go, so you need to be in the right place,
Right.
and de-escalation, right? So we're training people on how to de-escalate, how to engage in a situation and make sure that they bring it from a 10 to a 0. Now, let's be clear. Most of the folks that are going out to protect the polls are not going to have these battles with white supremacists like we think. And so the real goal is to make sure that there is a calming presence at the polling place, and that if something does happen, that we are providing the protection that is required, that you are trained with the knowledge that is required. And so that's what it looks like right now. De-escalation training. We have trained people who are able to give our brothers the tools that they need to calm down situations, but also the information that they need. That's the big conflict. I think we too often are looking at TV or going on Twitter, going on social media, and we believe that there's going to be, some huge physical altercations. And that's the story, actually, that the right wants. What our biggest danger is invisible. It is the misinformation. It is the quiet things that happen when people are in line. And really, sometimes it's just that encouraging person to say, look, I got you. You're going to be good. I'm going to get that information for you, but don't go anywhere. That's what protection can look like. Lastly, I want to say it's also providing water. We're in Florida, right? Other places may be cooling off, but we're not. The humidity is still there. Providing water, providing just information, and providing the service things that you need while you wait in line. Maybe it's some healthy food, some granola. I don't like granola, but somebody likes granola. And so we want to make sure that people have what they need to be able to experience what democracy should look like on that day. We're far from it in this country.
Right. And so I think it's amazing that you're taking a preventative stance here, because I don't think that's what people tend to, again, when we get on Twitter and we see the, like you said, people typically don't think that organizations are coming in preventatively minded. And so you talked a little bit about like what some preventative, so give us an example of a situation where someone would just be like, hey, I know this person just said something to you, but that's actually not true. Like give us some
What does it look
training.
like?
Yeah, what does it look like?
Well, really, it's about staying vigilant. And so, if you're at your polling place early enough and you stay there throughout the day, which is what we're asking for many of the brothers to do, you're observing if there's somebody who is not really in line, but they're making a whole bunch of conversation with people who are in line. You understand? And so, the first step is to be vigilant. You're seeing if there are some provocateurs. You're seeing if, once again, there's somebody who is loitering or who is around who seems to be talking to people and creating questions. You're making conversation with people while they're in line. You're asking them, have they voted before? Is this your first time? You're not asking them if they've got a conviction, but you're asking them, do they have any questions about whether they will be able to vote? Excuse me. And you're able to unearth some of those questions that may come up. That's the big thing. It's nothing. And so in a kind of role play, I'm going through the line and I'm saying, hey, how are you? Is this your first time voting? Oh, no, you voted before. You have any questions? You have any issues? Well, I don't know, man. I finished paying my I'm off probation. I think I should be able to vote. I think this is my location. Okay, well, if you're off, depending on the state, if you're off probation, you should absolutely be able to vote. Or if you're in Florida, then we have to engage in that question a little bit differently. But it's making
Yeah.
sure that we're armed with the information and that we're armed with the know-how to be able to be vigilant, to call out and to call in people when we're observing the lines, and make sure we're just a place, like I said, a black face in the space that people can come to.
Right. So give us a brief overview on why this is a deeper question in Florida, because we could do a whole show on that. And I
Oh,
actually think one of my colleagues did do a show on that, if I'm
yeah,
not
yeah,
mistaken. So just
yes.
explain to people watching us why in Florida, whether or not you can vote after finishing parole is a deeper question.
It's a deeper question because Florida, right? The punchline. But
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is, since this state became a state, they had a law on the books where if you had a felony conviction, you were banned from voting really for the rest of your life. There were things that you could do to gain clemency, but the clemency list was a very long list. You had to go through a whole bunch of things. And if you're black, if you're poor, you're not going to get that heard. And so pretty much you were relegated to second class citizenship for the rest of your life, not able to vote, serve on juries, live in certain places, etc. And so, led by Desmond Meade and the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition, this effort, I think over 10 years really, was successful in 2018 in reversing that. And so the people of Florida, through public referendum, came forward and voted in the affirmative for Amendment 4 that said, if you have a felony conviction, you should have a right to be able to vote. And then summarily, after Ron DeSantis, who is Donald Trump Jr., Donald Trump Light, Donald Trump the Fifth, became governor of the state of Florida, he sought to reverse what the people in Florida decided. And so they have been trying to add poll taxes, which said that not only do you have to be done with probation or out of prison and served your time, but you've got to have paid all of the fees. And the fees can be exorbitant. I've been on probation in Georgia. There's a processing fee. There's an actual fee that you have to pay. There's all type of hoops you got to go through. And if you don't have money, you're not going to. So this is tantamount to a poll tax. And so it has been going back and forth in the Supreme Court. And Desmond Meade and the team have been fighting that. And so that's why there's a question still. And one that I should have the answer to today, but I actually think that the right has won the most recent decision, and we're still fighting that now.
I do believe you're correct. I do think that it's still being contested and that you do
Mhm.
still have to pay court fines in order to vote in Florida.
Right.
And so Jacqueline has a question for you, and she wants to know, how do we encourage Black men to vote when they have frustrations with both parties? Which is a very good question.
Yeah. First off, one of my favorite quotes by Amilcar Cabral. He says, claim no easy victories, tell the people no lies. Call out lies whenever they are told. That is the responsibility of true, revolutionary leadership. And so for Jacqueline, I would say you start there. We do not lie. I have issues with both parties. I don't like either party. I'm a leftist, right? And I'm not going to go for your audience slate. I'm not going to go as tell them how far left I am today. But what I
I
will
think
say is,
I think Slate's audience is leans fairly progressive anyway. Since we're
I'm
being
left of I'm left of Bernie Sanders, right? I am a leftist. I'm an internationalist, a black feminist, right? And I'm an anti-capitalist, absolutely. So what I will say is that I don't have love for either party. Zero, absolutely none. Neither one of them have redeeming qualities for me. But as Black people, we have to understand that we are engaged in a long struggle against this country. And what we have to do is make decisions, many of which are compromises because we're far from the point of power that we need to be in, that allow us to have favorable terrain to fight on. And the favorable terrain that I'm talking about in the year 2020, in the month of November, is to vote Donald Trump out, right? And what we also say to brothers is whether you choose to vote or not, right, you have to stay vigilant and you have to make a decision that is right for your people. And the decision that is right for your people is to vote against a fascist, somebody who is ginned up and who has normalized a level of brazen white supremacy that has put the bodies of our people in danger in cities across the country. We also say we are choosing an opponent, not a champion. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are not our champions on any of our policy issues, but we are choosing an opponent and a favorable opponent at that, right? And so someone who we can move and potentially build leverage over to be able to advance in some small part our objectives for our people. And so that's the conversation. I'm saying it real proper because we're doing this. But if I'm talking to brothers, I'm saying, listen, if you're not voting, are you allowing right-wing rhetoric to be the reason that you're not voting, or this story that our votes don't mean anything? The question is not whether our votes mean anything. It is what are you and I going to do to make our votes mean something, right? And what is the powerful infrastructure we're going to build to make people scared to disappoint Black people? And until we do that, we're going to be locked in this cycle, and we can't sit this one out.
So, how will activism influence the election? Because I think you've kind of spelled out the purpose of activism when it comes to our electoral politics, which is, like you said, many activists and organizers I've spoken with. It's not about picking someone who they like. It's about picking someone who they can move. And so,
Mm-hmm.
how do you think activism will move this election?
Well, Julia, you said it there. I don't know how activism is going to move this election, but I do know how organizing is going to move this election, right? And organizing is the act of bringing people together around a common goal, around power. And we define power as organized people, right? And so elected officials, particularly on the national level, but really especially on the local level, they respect organizations' ability to move, to educate, sometimes to mobilize people for their cause and to apply that pressure. And so in that way, the organizing that has happened in a number of the cities around the country, and really the aggregate of which is represented on the national level by movements like the Sunrise Movement, like the Movement for Black Lives, organizations like the Dream Defenders. These are groups that are able to apply pressure because they have built people power. And so I think activism has an incredible role in highlighting an issue, shining a light, giving it better lighting, it, making sure that people understand what is happening. But it is the organizing that happens when the lights are gone that actually is going to be the connective tissue to make these things actually happen. And in that way, I think both activism and organizing are having a tremendous effect on this election right here. We'll see what really happens after the election, when we sustain that and when we push that and we make sure that we don't take our foot off the gas, right? And so that's the
Right.
real testament. Real quick, the debate questions are a small barometer of what activism is doing right now, right? We're talking about climate, we're talking about racial justice and racial animus, we're talking about the economy. Those are all things that have been pushed by the people into the national conversation. So it's an incredible bellwether or barometer of where activism and organizing have taken us to this point. We'll see what happens on day one if we're able to actually craft, which the movement for Black Lives has, but push and advance and get champions toward an agenda that actually frees people from really living in hell.
Right. Gotcha. And so I also just want to ask you point blank, what is the importance of election protection?
Mhm. This is a country that has never lived up to even its professed ideals. And one of the primary professed ideals of the quote unquote founding fathers was a democracy, one of a government built by the people in service for the people. And I am a person that believes in democracy, not American democracy, but the practice of allowing for people to come together, have all the information they need, and to come and make decisions that advance the collective. That is a principle that I believe in. It's hard, it is messy, it is unpredictable, but democracy is a magical thing for a citizenry. And so for me, it is a shame that organizations like ours and others have to do this work that actually the government should be doing, making sure that there is no impediment. There shouldn't be work. You shouldn't have to go to work on election day. There should be as many you go to the grocery store, how many different versions of cereal is it?
Too
How
many.
many right, how many different versions of syrup or whatever, like there is, and because of Amazon now, there is no impediment to you being able to spend money in this country. There is nothing. If you have it, now there's impediments to you getting it, but if you have it, it's easy to spend it. Then it should be that easy. I actually have a lot of critiques about that, but it should be that easy, if not easier, for somebody to tender their vote for who represents them in this quote unquote representative democracy. And so, election protection, I know is a point blank question, and maybe you were hoping for a more succinct answer, but election protection is of the utmost importance, especially for people who believe wholeheartedly in the vote as an essential part of their practice in civics and in being a citizen. And so for us this year, especially when you have the threat potentially of violence, of massive misinformation, of massive voter purges, and people telling them you're not at the right polling place, it really behooves us, if we want to change this country slightly for the better, and I think it is only slightly, that we have an infrastructure to protect people when they go.
No, I thought your answer was great. I don't care for succinct answers. I actually like it when
Okay.
people so you're
Okay.
doing
You have the right one. I'm a preacher's kid, so
and so I only have about two more questions for you. But I do want to ask you another point blank question. Why do you believe in democracy? And I ask that because I feel like so many Black people, for similar reasons, do. So,
mhm.
why do you believe in democracy?
Well, once again, I don't believe that America is a democracy, but I believe in democracy. If you break down the word, is demos, right? It is the people, right? And I'm a person. I never liked anybody telling me what to do. I'm a naturally rebellious person. My mom would say, she would ask me to clean my room, and whether it was in my mind that day to clean my room earlier than she told me or not, the moment that she told me, I did not want to clean my room anymore, right? And I think that in this country, particularly with Black people, Indigenous people especially, this is their land, but particularly with Black people who are responsible for the entirety of the wealth of the Western world, who
Right.
are the basis of this economic boom that this country has seen since for 400, 500 years,
Right.
that at the very least, at the very least, Black people have the right to decide what the government looks like. Now, as I said, I'm a socialist, so I think that this country, if it looked like what I wanted, it would look dramatically different. The vision that I have for this country is not on the ballot, but the steps towards getting there, right, and the potential steps towards sending us farther back are. And so for me, I believe in democracy inherently because it gives me, I believe in having the power to determine what my life looks like, or at least, at the very least, the power to determine how bad it's going to get. So for me, that's why I believe in democracy. I love at least the concept of people being able to come together and debate and to bring forth the best idea, and for people making decisions that may not be the best for them personally, but that advance all of us together, and for people to have that level of discourse. And I really love what that concept and that theory looks like on paper, and in the experiences that I've been able to have where it goes from paper to practice. I've also loved those. Like I said, it's hard, it's messy, and it's frustrating because sometimes I like things to go how I want them to go, and it doesn't happen that all the time in democracy. And I think we, as Black people in this country, have a right to democracy and to be able to begin to live in that. And I think organizations have a responsibility to building that and giving us practice in what it looks like to govern and have democracy within our organizations, our homes, our families.
Right. And so my final question for you, and thank you for that answer. I appreciated it a lot. And my final question for you is, how do you think the 2020 election will be discussed by historians?
You gave me a warning about this.
I did. It's a big question though.
It is. It is. Well, one, I'm gonna go maybe too deep here. I think it depends on who is writing that history, of course, right? And I think American historians are gonna look towards this election, and if Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are to win, American historians are gonna say this was when America got back on track. This is when America reclaimed its civility, when America reclaimed its principled stance as a leader of the free world. That's what American historians are going to say. American historians, if Trump is to win, is going to say this was a huge step back for our country, when our country steeped further into authoritarianism and hatred and division. That's what American historians are going to say. I think when the people write the history of the election of 2020, it is going to be said that it was a time where our people recognize that no one is coming to save us, and that if we do not build powerful organization that liberates the mind, the body, and the soul, that gives practice to what it looks like to govern and be self-determined and self-autonomous, then we're going to lose no matter who wins the election. And so I think when we write the history, it will be a momentous year. And I don't mean this with blind optimism. I mean this because I've actually been talking to people and experience with people. I think the year 2020 is going to be like we thought it was going to be, a year of great clarity, of 2020 vision, and you don't get better vision all the time by just putting on some frames. Sometimes you got to get your pupils dilated, and it's a little bit fuzzy for a few months, right? Or a few days or a few weeks. And then you're able to kind of see clear. And so I think when they look back, this is going to be an ending of something. I don't know exactly what it is, but absolutely it'll be a beginning of really a national organized movement towards a radically new country. And that's going to involve Gen Z, millennials, right, across race, class, gender, and geography, saying that no one is coming to save us, and we're no longer looking to the president of this country or really the federal government for the solutions or the hope and the change that we really require in our lives.
Right. Well, thank you. for your time today. And that is our time. You were terrific. And
Thank you.
thank you, of course. And thank you to everyone watching at home. And if y'all come back, or when y'all come back next Monday, rather, because you better come back, my
Mhm.
colleague, Noreen Malone, will be joined by Valerie Jarrett. And this show is produced by Faith Smith and Britt Pulley. And from all of us at Slate, take care, drink your water, and wear your sunscreen.